Hey, Melissa, I'm here. I'm just gonna be off video for the first part, okay?
Got it.
All right, by my watch, we still have a minute to go, so just give it a little bit here. Oh, there we go. All right, 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. First up, there are only gonna be 3 of us here this evening, but as Melissa pointed out to me earlier today, conservation is the one body here in town where you need a quorum of filled seats, not a quorum of total seats, in order to conduct a public hearing. So we're good to go with 3 people because we only have 5 of our seats filled. So our quorum right now actually is 3 people. Has everyone had a chance to go through the minutes from September 14th? See Kevin nodding his head.
Yeah.
Yes, they look good to me.
Okay, great. Yeah, they look good to me too. Kevin, did you have any edits?
No, I just wanted to thank Lara for making my question sound intelligible. And, I always read it. It's like, wow, that sounded pretty good. Okay. Yeah. But no, they were great. Yeah.
I've said before, the minutes are almost done too well. I feel like she should be hiding some errors in there to keep us on our toes. Anyhow, so if there are no edits or changes, could somebody make a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So moved.
And a second?
Second,
Thank you.
Zulik,
yes.
Farrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right.
All right, so first up for public hearings, 87 Southville Road, NOI. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 5th, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 87 Southville Road, map 4, lot 41, for the applicant MBTA. The project description is to conduct a sediment sampling program in limited vegetation clearing at the Corderville Dam located in Southborough and Hopkinton. And I see Mr. Murphy and Mr. Fontaine are here to present the project. Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for having us. So yeah, like you said, and my name is Jeremy Fontaine. I'm here at the MBTA Environmental, and we also have members of our consultant staff, CDM Smith, that has a presentation for the commission. And I'm going to pass it along to them, but I'll be here to answer any questions as they come up throughout the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Magdalena Lofsted. I'm a wetland scientist with CDM Smith. I'm going to go through the brief presentation that we prepared. With me is a couple of other staff members as well, and they can chime in as they feel fit.
Thanks, Megan. I'm going to make one request. I don't know if there's a Hamed Abshari in the viewing room, but if there is, could we have him promoted as 2? That would be appreciated.
Yep, they should be loading in.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Maggie.
So yeah, so you want to go to maybe the 3rd slide that we put together. So I assume everyone on the commission knows where the dam is located. It is located right off the Southborough commuter rail parking lot. It is located both in Southborough and Hopkinton. The town line is, I believe, in the center of the Sudbury River. The dam is owned by the MBTA, but is under the jurisdiction of the Office of Dam Safety. It's considered a small size, low hazard potential dam. And there was a phase 1 dam inspection completed in 2017. And at that time, and that rating still stands, the dam was rated as poor. It basically means, in the definition of the poor rating is one of the significant risks is to public safety located downstream of the dam. So the goal is here for the MBTA to improve the rating of the condition of the Corderville Dam. So we filed a notice of intent for the proposed work, which consists of removal of woody vegetation on the dam, According to the definition of the poor rating, one of the ways that you can improve the rating is by removing, significant woody vegetation on the embankment. And the other proposed work is sediment sampling, and we need to characterize the sediment impounded upstream in Cordoville Pond. And we need that is to be able to evaluate potential remedial repairs and also to improve the condition of the dam. So next slide. This is just a sketch of what the dam looks like for those who are not familiar. And I'm sure, Jim, you could probably chime in more than I. It's an earthen dam it's a riprap on the backside of the embankment. And then Southborough, actually, there's no bordering vegetated wetland in Southborough. That's more located on the downstream side in Hopkinton. If you want to go to the next slide. So the woody vegetation would basically consist of removing trees, anything really over 4 inches DBH, diameter breast height, on the embankment and extending 20 feet downstream of the embankment. So like in Hopkinton, we will be actually removing vegetation in the BVW, but not in Southborough. Basically, if you look at that photo on the right, the trees that you see, those are basically in Southborough. So that's pretty much the extent of what we will be removing in Southborough. And then a little bit on the parking lot side as well, which is not shown in this. We'll see that on the next image where we have the plan. The trunks will be cut flush with the ground. There'll be no excavation or stump removal. And we would need to seal the trunks with a waterproof sealant. And then we're proposing to stabilize any earthen surfaces by basically, scarifying the topsoil. And we have developed a native seed mix. It's a low meadow grass mixture with perennial forbs for some pollinator habitat, and then covered with an erosion control blanket. And, this is kind of like a temporary stabilization, and, because it could be there for a few years, but that also depends on what remedial repairs this evaluation will come up with. So next slide. This is just the plan that was included in notice of intent. Access, of course, is the biggest probably issue here. So we're proposing to use the MBTA parking lot for staging. And that was the same staging area and access that was used for the previous limited geotechnical program that has been completed, but we are proposing to widen that path. I wish I had a picture. I don't know if you guys have been out there recently, but it doesn't need to be widened very much. There are some cut vegetation there along the banks that needs to be removed. And again, we're proposing for them to use timber mats, although we were told by the driller that he needs a bit of a more stable staging surface for access, with the drill rig that's going to be on a barge. So we are proposing to place some riprap, like a geotextile fabric, and then stone riprap, and then the mats on top of that. I think you can go to, unless somebody has any questions about this, about where the resource areas are. All of the work is with the 100-year floodplain. We have riverfront area. And then again, like I said, it's just buffer zone and then inland bank. All the BVW is located in Hopkinton. The next slide. This is a sediment sampling that will be done. We are doing 15 gravity probes, basically to measure the sediment depth. And that's just a gravity probe, 5 geoprobes. The gravity probes, by the way, are like the green lines. that I put on that little figure to the right, the 5 geoprobes, which is basically a hollow tube, and those will be sent to the lab for analytical testing. Those are the red dots. And then, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. Sorry. And then we're also doing grab samples, which will be just the top 2 feet of the sediment. And none of this work, requires any drill or wash water. So, but then the next slide shows where we're doing the geotechnical borings, and there shows the type of equipment that the driller is proposing to use. It's on a barge, powered by an external gas hydraulic power pack. And we're doing 5 borings in the upstream impoundment, and approximately 25 foot deep, 5 foot into the underlying bedrock. And there was a question that came up also from the peer reviewer, how we will filter the drill water, and we reached out to the geotech to the driller, and they assured us that it would be recirculated in a wash tub, which allows the sediment to settle out, and then it will be passed through a filter sock prior to discharge. So they're hoping to be able to use the water in the pond, and then for when they're doing the upstream from the river. So the next slide, please. We did get the peer reviewers comments today, and we did refresh the wetland resource area flags as requested by the commission. Lucas determined that the flagging is accurate. We included the impacts to the wetland resource areas in the notice of intent. I just listed them here again. The larger numbers there that you see impacts the BLSF and riverfront area is from the staging and access, and that's a lot of that is within the paved parking lot. And we are proposing to install compost logs around the vegetation removal on the dam to prevent any sediment from washing into the adjacent river or BVW in Hopkinton. And then we also already talked about recirculating and filtering the drill water. Do we have time to go over the peer review? Is that something that the commission is interested in doing in detail?
Yes.
I think we can.
Go
If
ahead.
you have any questions, we can. Sorry, this is Hamid Akshari from CDM Smith, working with Maggie on this project. Before we go to the response to comments, I was just asking if there's any questions about the content that we presented.
Well, why don't we go through your presentation first, and then we'll turn to the commission for questions and comments.
Okay, so I went through, I also provided in writing written responses, but it was kind of late in the day, so I don't know if Melissa had a chance to take a look at them. But it seemed to me that the biggest comment that they probably had was that they were recommending an invasive species management plan, and I've listed the species that they found, and I would imagine that this was mostly on on the parking lot side. These are very common species that you see in this type of habitat. It's disturbed, it gets a lot of runoff from the parking lot, etc. And again, we MBTA, the subcontractor, will dispose of all cut vegetation offsite. And we're proposing to include a long-term revegetation and planting plan, which will include invasive species control plan once we, move to those, file a notice of intent for any, more permanent remedial repairs. So that wouldn't be part of this phase, so to speak. And then there was another comment that Lucas had, that they wanted a silt curtain installed in the impoundment where the access is. And I personally don't think that that's necessary because the drill rig is going to be on a barge. So we are not anticipating that sediments, the pond sediment will be disturbed. A lot of the other comments were administrative. There was a couple of errors on the form, and I acknowledged that, yes, that Lucas was correct. So I think that's pretty much what I have. Unless you want to go over every response in detail.
Nope, that's okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let's see. I would like to, before we turn it over to the commission, I would like to ask Joe if you could go just very quickly through your comments. The one that I didn't hear addressed was determining whether this qualifies as a limited project or not. I understand they've had some responses to your comments. I don't know if you've had time to look at those today, but I wouldn't mind hearing a quick rundown of your comments.
Sure. I think a number of the comments were touched on. I did look at the delineation previously, and it looked appropriate, so there were no issues with that. Regarding the invasive species management plan, I know they've noted that they will be disposed of off-site. Just want to be sure that they're not, maybe some detail on what is being done to prevent spread of those invasives, because there's a lot out there. There's a lot of Japanese knotweed in there also, and just to make sure that it's not being moved off-site and used somewhere else, what the plan is for that soil, if they have a yard where it's being stored, and if it's going to be dealt with in any way. It's very common on-site, so it's going to be there. It is there, and it's but just pretty much trying to prevent movement of the invasives off-site if possible. Let's see. I noted that the citation for the NBTA not being subject to the local bylaws was there's a typo in that, so they corrected that. Regarding the erosion control, suggesting the silt curtain, I just thought that with the access point right along the bank there, if there was going to be any activity right on the edge of that bank, there's potential for some disruption of the bank, and it might not be a bad idea to have a silt curtain. I wasn't so much worried about the actual sediment sampling and disturbing the bottom sediments, but possibly the bank might be disturbed at that location. With regard to the limited project, I think anything that was in the impoundment is covered by the limited project language. It's less clear that anything upstream in the river would be covered by the limited project language. It includes work on a dam, appurtenant structures, and the impoundment. So I just don't know how far upstream that really technically applies to.
So I can clarify on the limits. I think the farthest we're going upstream is going to be up to Cedar Street Extension Bridge. So, and that would be the extent of our geoprobe. So that's how far we are going to take geoprobes.
And is the river impounded at that point, or is it more or less free flowing?
I believe that would be free flowing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, our hydraulic analysis, and I'll be honest, I'd have to take another look to know the exact point, but it is impounded pretty close to the Cedar Street Bridge. The water elevation is very flat up that far.
Yeah.
It was actually, we were very shocked in our hydraulic analysis how far back it was actually impounded. So we can compare the exact location, but the impoundment does get pretty close to that bridge. It's just the exact point's not something.
Yeah, so I don't think there's an issue if it's within the impoundment. I think it's covered by the limited project. It's, like I said, it's less clear if it's beyond the limit of the impounded water.
But we're not exceeding any thresholds
you're
that
not.
the commission
That's
can
correct.
approve. So it's kind of like a mute point
That's
in a
correct.
way.
think everything else was touched on. As far as this being addressed, I don't think I have anything else that was outstanding in my comments.
Okay.
Check was the check information that was submitted. Just wanted to verify that the proper check and
Yep.
fee was submitted, because the check that was submitted in the Southborough filing was a Hopkinton check, and I'm sure Melissa would have caught that.
There was some initial confusion, but we got it under control.
Okay.
And also just to clarify, I think this was talked about in the pre-discussions before you submitted the NOI. Is it still, you know, if as you're going upstream, you will only go as far as you can without having to move anything out of the way? Just so it's kind of, so if the barge gets impacted by, you know, a large piece of debris, whether it's a tree or whatnot, then you would stop doing the testing there.
I wouldn't, and I guess I'll look for Hamed to chime in on this, but I think the intent is if there's down debris in the river that's, you know, dead debris floating, we would try to move past it if it's allowed and we can. We certainly, if there's a live tree that's, you know, partially collapsed, that we, you know, we wouldn't go cutting down live vegetation. But yeah, I think we would desire to dead debris in the waterway, if that can be removed by, you know, hand and by the crews there, we would want to move that out of the way so we can work upstream.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just
and
want to make sure that's pretty clear in the conditions.
Yeah, our crew that that goes for sediment sampling, they don't bring any vegetation cutting equipment. So that would be, like Jim mentioned, that would be moving and removing from their way to move upstream.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. So at this point, are there any questions, comments, concerns from the commission? Kevin and Liz.
Nothing on my end.
Yeah, I just had one. Did I see that you were bringing in a crane to lift the drilling rig into the pond, or did I imagine that?
I would defer to Hamed on that, but I could see
Yeah.
that possible.
Yeah, I don't believe so. So that would be mobilized to the area with kind of like assembled on site. So we are not planning to bring a big crane. I don't know if we had that in the NOI or we mentioned that anywhere.
I thought I saw that mentioned. Okay, because I
They
thought
did
that
not need it
just-
the last drilling, so it's a good thing.
Yeah.
We can certainly let you know if that is the case, but I think Hamed's right. They did not do that last time, so.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin. For my part, I just need a little bit of clarification. This is something that I just haven't seen happen before the commission, but you know, we're talking about for the tree removal work, some mitigation for that, you know, occurring within resource areas. We're talking about the mitigation taking place in a future filing. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I can clarify on that. I don't know what exactly we mentioned in the NOI, but the intent is to do the inspection after the vegetation removal, do the inspection to evaluate the condition of dam, see what actions and for what remedial actions or efforts needed for the future. So there's nothing that we are going to plan for mitigate as of now. That would be pending until we go out and do the inspection after our vegetation removal. So that's part of the mitigation that we are kind of like a future maintenance of the dam. That's
I think maybe we in the notice of intent we were referring to the long-term mitigation plan as how we would restore the access path that we cut. Is that what you?
No, the removal of trees from within a resource area is something that the commission certainly can approve, and we have in the past this type of work, but it's always accompanied by mitigation to offset the impacts.
So you know what we can do then, because we could, you know, as Ahmed explained, after, the inspection and the remedial repairs of whatever that ends up being, we have the access path, the path that we're using down to the impoundment. We could do some plantings in that area because we can't replace any trees on the dam, obviously, or within like if 20 feet downstream of the dam. But along the impoundment, along the bank, we do have some space where we can develop a planting plan. But the thing is, we didn't want to propose that now, because if we have to come, when we come back, that would be the same access, because that is the best access point
Sure.
to the dam. There's really no other way to get there.
No,
So,
that's
unless you
understood.
get, easements to private properties, that's the other option. And, I don't know.
No, this does kind of tie in with another point that Joe raised regarding the invasives management. He's speaking specifically to the invasives that are going to be removed as part of this project need to be handled very carefully. So we're not spreading them, for instance, downstream through, not anticipating you act carelessly, but that's certainly one vector for the further spread of invasives. And one kind of mitigation that we commonly see for this type of thing, for work within a resource area that the commission accepts, is invasives management within the project. If you can improve either the direct area or immediately abutting areas by removing invasives, coming up with a plan for the immediate future to keep them at bay, that's, we've historically considered that as a pretty powerful mitigation for impacts within the resource areas and buffer zones.
So can that be like a condition that is going to be part of the next phase, so to speak?
So
or how do we handle that here?
I'm trying. It's like I said, this is a situation we haven't really come across before, and I guess I'd also ask Melissa to chime in if you can think of a way of. I don't know that we can condition within an order of conditions issued pursuant to this notice of intent, if we can condition the contents of a future notice of intent.
Yeah, one thing you could do is kind of set a timeline on it. So, one thing you can condition is that if you want the mitigation, if you're okay with that coming within the future notice of intent, stating that within your condition. But if the notice of intent isn't submitted within X amount of years, or time frame, then it must be, submitted as part of this application prior to the COC, or something to that effect. That might be one way to go about it. If you wanted just kind of temporary invasive management, kind of what Joe was getting to, that can also be a condition for this part of it. Maybe something a little more substance before the dam removal or the dam investigation starts. That could be another at least way to kind of have a happy medium. So you'll still have that condition for the next NOI, but you'll have something now in the meantime for this work as well.
That's a great idea.
Melissa, I have a question though regarding the COC. So would you put requirements as we need to see 90, for example, 90% less invasives? How would that work in that sense?
So usually we do like a 2-year monitoring program. So, I think the commission has pretty much been accepting our standard of like 75 to 80% removal. I think it's up to the commission to decide what that percentage and what the area is for now, if they want to put that percentage on this, or if they just want to have something in terms of active kind of removal, and then the monitoring come with the next NOI.
Okay, sounds good. I would defer to the team, to CDM Smith, on looking at the type of invasives, but I know if there's a lot of Japanese knotweed, 2 years might be a struggle based on previous projects we've worked on, but we can certainly, I like that idea that you've approached.
There are sort of two ideas there, and I like both of them. The first, more immediate one, is there's going to be disturbance of invasives as you're doing this work, and this is something that Joe mentioned, and I share his concern. These are conditions that we routinely apply to other projects. If invasives are being removed, First, we want to make sure that it's done carefully so that they're not inadvertently spread. And second, we want to make sure, especially with things like knotweed and inkberry and so forth, bittersweet, that it's it's disposed of in such a way that it's not going to go to a landscape yard where it's going to get spread around the community subsequently. We want it landfilled or disposed of in some manner that's going to ensure that it won't spread further. So that's sort of the more immediate thing within this filing that I think probably ought to be addressed. And then Melissa's idea of giving a timeline, it occurs to me that 2 years would probably be a decent amount of time, that if an invasives management mitigation strategy hasn't been submitted, within 24 months from the issuance of the order of conditions, as part of a future filing, then under this order of conditions, one will have to be prepared and executed on the site. I'm sorry, that was a really clunky way of saying all that.
No, that made sense to me. Can it then be like a condition, because is the subcontractor, like, we don't know exactly the disposal location? Could we
Yeah.
like have a condition that they have to submit that information?
Absolutely. In fact, a great time to address that. You will have picked the subcontractor, and then at the pre-construction meeting that you'll typically have with Melissa 48, 72 hours beforehand, that would be a topic of conversation. How's this stuff going to be handled? Where's it going to go to?
That sounds good to me.
And Melissa, that's still your SOP, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay. Kevin and Liz, does that sound generally okay with you guys?
It seems consistent with what we've done in the past. So yeah.
Yeah, that works for me.
Thank you. Before I forget, I see we have some folks out in the audience. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to offer a comment or ask a question on this matter? If so, please use the raise hand function and we will promote you right up.
I do not see anyone.
Okay. It sounds like we would be able to craft some conditions later tonight to enable us to close the meeting. Does that sound right, Melissa?
Yep, we are
Yeah.
good to go.
Okay, yeah. So I think at this point, if there are no further questions or comments, I'd be looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right,
And,
I will most likely have this order to you guys on Monday.
Okay, we typically, we craft the order at the end of our meetings, which are more than welcome to stick around for, but it'll be, as we discussed here.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. Appreciate the time and have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I lied, actually Tuesday, because Monday's a holiday.
Oh, yeah.
Good call. And no problem at all.
You can thank Laura for that. Yeah, thank you, Laura.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night. All right, next up, 0 Marlborough Road. In accordance with the provisions of the Southborough Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, Southborough General Bylaw, Chapter 154, the Southborough Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, October 5th, 2023 at 7:10 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a stormwater management permit for a project located at 0 Marlborough Road, maps 53 and 54, lots 9 and 8. The project description is the redevelopment of an existing parking area of St. Mark's School to coincide with the new roadway layout and town improvements of St. Mark's Street. And, Mr. Carey, Mr. Cleaves are here to present this evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. To where we left off last time, my recollection was we're going to wait for Fuston O'Neill's review, which we had received, and we submitted response comments to that. So happy to go through each comment if that's what you would like to do. I don't know if anyone had a chance to review those. We did submit revised plans as well. One other thing to note that was discussed at the last meeting, which was not on Fuss O'Neill's comments, was discussion about snow storage and not having snow storage in the swale area. So just so you are aware, on the revised set of plans, we did add 2 signs noting no snow storage along that edge of the parking area where the stone filter strip and the drainage swale would be. So I know it's kind of being discussed, but we wanted to make sure we added that to the plan so that we wouldn't have to discuss it anymore. So so that is on there. But and also as an update, we have been to the planning board for 1 meeting, received comments from Fuss O'Neill through that part of the review as well. We've made updates for most of that and submitted that to the planning board. The one outstanding round of updates is pertaining to lighting. Our lighting people have not had a chance to make the updates, the plans as of yet. So we're hoping that happens very soon. We can get that information to the planning board so they can finish their process. We are scheduled to be before them October 16th for the next hearing to hopefully discuss their items. So, however you'd like to proceed, please let us know.
I wouldn't mind just a very quick rundown of your responses to Fuss and O'Neill's comments. Just
Sure.
Hitting the highlights. And if we have questions, then we can get down into the weeds.
Absolutely. I'll just go right through the letter quickly. Item 1 was having stamped information. We've provided stamped information, O&M, stormwater report. That's been taken care of. 2 was asking the requirement about the duration of exposure of disturbed areas. At this point, we don't know what that will be because it will be dependent upon when construction takes place. That'll depend upon how we go through the permitting process. So our request to the commission was to maybe have a condition of approval requiring a construction schedule be submitted prior to construction. So then we'd have a better idea of what that would be, and you'd have an up-to-date schedule at that point. 3 was in regards to having proof of says recording the permit to the registry of deeds. No problem with that. Once we get a permit, hopefully we could do that. They commented about having as-built drawings. No issue with that. We can entertain a condition if that's what you require for as-built. But we know that's part of the regulation, so we're fully prepared to do that upon completion. More stamped plans we've submitted. Signatures on forms, no issue there. They mentioned about a surety bond, so we're happy to discuss that with the commission on whatever you require there. Hopefully, it would be minimal. Permits we need, major site plan review, which we're going through planning board now. We've added some notations to the plan, some legends, table of land covers. Number 11 was a requirement about the shortest distance to the groundwater. We had performed a test bit prior to these design plans being prepared, kind of at the low end of the site. That was on the plans. There's a test pit log. It was on the stormwater report. We added the depth of that right on the plan, so that's on there. Public wells, private wells, we're not aware of any in the immediate area of the project. Cut and fill. We approximate about 300 yards of loam and 100 yards of common fill that will be needed to be imported for the project. Most of that is, if you recall, we have a landform being constructed along Marlborough Road to kind of provide a little bit of a visual separation. So that's where the bulk of the import would be needed. Plus, this site has no loam on it today. So we have nothing to reuse. So all of the landscape areas will be all an import of loam. We've added the NOAA frequency table to the report. And now the next ones, if you're following along, 15, 16, 17, 18, probably the rest of the comments all pertain to stormwater. And those are probably the ones that, if anything, we were going to have to discuss would be these. So some of their comments are in regards to the disposition of impervious surface. We have proposed this as a redevelopment where there's an existing gravel parking lot there. And Fussin O'Neill pointed out that their comment was that there is not a decrease in impervious surface as we had stated, that is actually an increase in impervious surface as they consider gravel not being impervious as it pertains to the stormwater management handbook. We relied on Southborough's stormwater bylaw where gravel surfaces are considered impervious surface, where in your definition, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, gravel surfaces are considered impervious.
Impervious, correct.
But you're talking about the existing condition. Okay.
So what Fussin O'Neill was saying is that based on DEP stormwater handbook, they say that they believe that gravel is not considered impervious. So when we were comparing pre and post, and we say, well, we have a net reduction in impervious surface, we considered basically we have no gravel left over, all the gravel is gone, and we're putting back pavement. So their comment was gravel is not considered impervious, so we actually have an increase in impervious surface. But we relied on Southborough's stormwater bylaws, which does define impervious gravel as impervious. So that was our response to that. So a lot of our stormwater design was kind of based on that premise that we're a redevelopment with a reduction in impervious surface. And then so the follow-up comments they had for that was in regards to TSS removal, 80% TSS, 40% phosphorus and whatnot in their regulations. Again, how we designed this and proposed this was that it was an improvement. Reducing impervious surface was going to improve overall TSS because there is no stormwater standard, stormwater management there now. There's no treatment. So we don't, let's see, so yeah, so we have an impervious decrease. So that was our premise on this being a redevelopment. So we looked at adding the stone filter edge, which we discussed, to the grass swale, and then to a deep sump-hooded catch basin. So we were asking the commission to consider what we've proposed as sufficient to address as a redevelopment and not to do any more than that. So I think that becomes the biggest discussion, I think, on all of this, is what the commission feels is acceptable in relation to what we proposed and this being considered a redevelopment. We can come back to that, and then I'll just go through the rest of these comments. They noted that this area does fall in an ORW, which is the Sudbury Reservoir surface water. So we acknowledge that. And then we asked the commission to consider the stormwater controls that we propose are appropriate in an ORW. We're not doing anything that's promoting anything to the groundwater or surface water to impact ORW. Other comments are still tied to the gravel surface and the redevelopment portion as it pertains to the stormwater calculations and general design. There was some discrepancies. There was a 1/10 difference in the invert of the catch basin between the plans and the HydroCAD calculations, and we've updated that. So the biggest discussion, I think it's for the commission, is if you feel as though you're satisfied with the development proposed that's before you now, or if we need to look into doing something additional.
Thank you. So Melissa, a question for you. our stormwater management bylaw says that gravel is impervious. Was that one of our recent changes?
I don't believe so, no.
No.
It's in the regulations, not in the bylaw itself, when I looked today.
I'm drawing a blank on that portion of it. I know the regulations do incorporate DEP stormwater management policy by reference in its entirety. What do you use for a curve number for the gravel areas when you're doing your pre and post calcs?
96.
For the gravel.
Correct.
So this
And
is
in your
type-
definition, I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe your definition said anything with a curve number greater than 86 or 89.
85, actually.
Okay, sorry. I was close. I knew it was
You were
less than
good.
90. That would be considered impervious. So just basically using the standard, HydroCAD gravel surface, compacted gravel, 96 is what we use for the curve number.
That number of 96 came out of the NRCS tables for the hydrologic soil group. It was type C soils, presumably.
Type C, yes, exactly. Yep.
Okay, so, which would give you the 96 there. Okay,
Right,
so okay. Just trying to. In a way, it's being treated in two different ways. I understand why you're doing that. Just trying to get my head around that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also, we looked at this, where this is not a notice of intent filing. It's not a Wetlands Protection Act jurisdictional DEP. We looked at this more as the stormwater bylaw, and so that's we're kind of going by that was our thought and intent.
It's the part that I have trouble wrapping my head around a little bit is decreasing impervious area by paving. We're replacing gravel with pavement, and I understand the arguments that you've made, but sort of on its face.
Well, I mean, it's on the flip side is if we were to clear a forest and put in a gravel parking lot, and I multiply my recharge times my impervious area, and I could say I don't have any impervious area.
Yeah.
So I don't need to have any TSS. I don't need to have any recharge because I'm just putting in gravel. So that's, that's not right at all.
No.
So I think to not consider that this is the developed area, that it's essentially impervious. There's a road and a gravel parking lot.
Just as one member, I'm generally comfortable with, I'm familiar with the area, and I'm generally comfortable calling it redevelopment. I want to make sure that we get it right from a drainage perspective, because this is an area with a problematic drainage situation, and we want to make absolutely certain that it's addressed. We're still waiting for a response from Fuss and O'Neill. Is that correct, Melissa?
That is correct, unless there's something, the commission thinks they can wrap up tonight.
Okay, well, before we get to that, first, Kevin and Liz, any questions, comments, concerns that you'd like to bring up?
I guess I'm a little concerned about, a definition in our regulations, not even the bylaw being used, and the contradicting what the state says we should be using. So that's not a comfortable place to be.
Yeah, I will say the difference between the two, the ability of the ground to take up water is characterized by this number called a curve number when you're doing the calculations. This isn't exactly what it is, but it's helpful to think of it this way. The curve numbers generally range between I think 30 and 98, almost 0 to 100. It's helpful to think of it as a curve number of 98. The ground will reject 98% of the water, and that water will run off of the land. Whereas a curve number of 30 the ground will accept 70% roughly what falls on it. The difference here we're talking about, and this is nothing to do with Southborough's, classification of gravels as being impervious. Right out of the design manual, so to speak. In this area with the type of soils that are present, the curve number for compacted gravel is 96. In the curve number for asphalt is 98, independent of Southborough's sort of reclassification. These are the numbers that are used throughout the Commonwealth on every site, and they're required by the DEP to be used. So part of what's going on here is it just sounds really funny, but the difference is
It's effectively impervious anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That being said, I don't know that I would feel comfortable acting without getting Fuss & O'Neill's final response here. However, if you guys feel that you're ready to do that, then then we can talk about it.
If I can interject, I suspect that they're probably going to, kick it back to you folks. Would be my expectation, and I agree with you saying with it being a sea soil definitely impacts that as well. So, but I mean, many times I don't think that your regulations contradict the state. I think as Mr. Smith, you're kind of alluding to. I think many times on projects, most commissions or reviewing authorities do consider gravel impervious, because usually it's the other way around. Usually we're proposing gravel, and you may try and say, I'm not putting any impervious surface. So all of our calculations that the state requires are based on how much area of impervious surface you have. So, sometimes you'll have developers fight that and say, well, no, I don't have any impervious surface. I don't have any pavement. That's not realistic, especially in a sea soil condition, as you pointed out. So in this case, it's backwards in the sense that we're dealing with the gravel is already in existence. So we're basically, taking credit that we're working with existing paved St. Mark's Street that was there in a gravel parking area. So I agree with you, though. It is a little difficult to kind of, wrap your head around or think about it cleanly, but
yeah. While we're mulling all this over, I want to make sure to invite anyone from the public who's here this evening who wishes to offer a comment or ask a question. Please use the raise hand function in Zoom, and we'll promote you up so that you can do that. No, I'm not seeing anybody.
No takers.
Okay. This project has been somewhat under a spotlight, as you may be aware, here in the community. The Southborough has retained the services of Fuss & O'Neill to provide an engineering review of what's going on here. I personally don't feel super comfortable acting in the absence of their final review. I'm curious how Kevin and Liz feel with respect to that also.
Yeah, I also haven't had a chance to even look at the response to Fuss & O'Neill's first round of comments. I think that probably only came in today. So yeah, having that extra time would be help me get more comfortable in the 96 versus 98 thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I know we're down 2 members tonight. And so I think making that decision when it's all the things above, I think if we can push it out, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mr. Cleese, it sounds like the commission, the part of it that's here this evening, we can't quite get ourselves comfortable with acting without having gotten Fuss & O'Neill's last round of comments. So
I can appreciate that, understand that. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything else we can work on here this evening. So the next step is to look at a continuance to our next meeting 3 weeks from now. Is there a motion to that effect?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Thank
Second,
you. And a second, thank you.
Zulik,
yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All set.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in tonight, and I suspect 3 weeks from now we'll have all the information we need, and we will be able to close the hearing down and move forward.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks. Okay. Next up, notice of intent in stormwater management permit, 250 Turnpike Road. In accordance with the provisions of the Southborough Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaws, Southborough General Bylaw, Chapter 154, Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will hold a continued public hearing on Thursday, October 5th, 2023 at 7:20 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider a notice of intent and stormwater management permit for a project located at 250 Turnpike Road, map 27, lots 2A and 46. The project description is the construction of a contractor's yard building, addition of driveway access, and maintenance of previously existing stormwater areas.
Yes.
Do we have
So-
anyone here this evening, or are they just looking for a continuance?
They are asking for a continuance. If we have any questions, Brian is here. But since we're down a couple members, if we just want to continue, that's fine. That'd probably work best. But just as a recap, myself, Joe, and Amy from Fuss and O'Neill have met with the engineer and applicant just to do some meeting of the minds, I guess, to try and get some of those comments rectified. So by the next hearing, we should have some additional responses and revisions.
Okay, thank you. I guess I would just say, Brian, if there's anything that you would like to share with the commission, by all means, you're more than welcome, and we would love to hear from you. We are, as you can see, reduced in numbers here tonight. And I suspect anything that we learned, our other members at our next meeting will probably want a recap of anyhow. But again, if you'd like to speak, by all means, use the raise hand function. We'll promote you right up. And if not, we will simply continue to our next meeting 3 weeks from now.
Not seeing the
Not
hands.
seeing hands, okay. So is there a motion to continue 250 Turnpike Road to our next meeting?
So moved.
Thanks. In a second.
Second,
Zulik,
yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Okay. Let's see here.
Easier with 3 people, but it's not.
Yes.
It's a battle.
All right. Let's see, final public hearing. I understand there's continuance requested, but I'll read the notice. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, October 5th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. via a virtual Zoom meeting. The commission will consider an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for a project located at 20 Sears Road, map 64, lot 2, for the applicant William DePietri. The project description is confirmation of wetland boundaries. And yeah, we won't be working on this at all tonight. So just, I'll tell you what, I'll mix things up. I move that we continue this to our next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. That's it for public hearings. New and continued business. So the Chestnut Hill Farm Management Plan has come in. Started going through it myself. I understand we have not yet gotten any comments back from Open Space. They're trying to get a meeting together to put some comments together. I think their input on this is valuable. We're also being reduced in numbers tonight. Melissa and I corresponded earlier today, and it sounded like really the best plan of action is to wait until next week when we have a full panel and input from other interested bodies here in town. So we will be just tabling that until our next meeting. Next up, request for a certificate of compliance for 17 Ward Road.
Yes, this is for a stormwater management permit. There was some increase in impervious along the driveway. And I think it was like a 24-foot length along the driveway for just a little better turnaround access. They did, as of either yesterday or this morning, amend the plan with some of my comments, just to ensure that the roof drains were connected to the dry wells, not the Coltech units, and that just making sure that the Coltech units were the appropriate size and number of chambers. So that revised plan has been submitted along with that final inspection report of the system, and ensuring that those both inspection ports on the Coltechs are visible and available in the future. So there was an increase in impervious. There wasn't any signs of erosion or impacts to abutting properties. And the Coltech seemed to be functioning from the roof drains.
Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, it sounds like we're they're in a position to get a certificate of compliance.
That would be, yeah.
Somebody like to make the motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second,
Zulik,
yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. Okay, request for an extension for Ruby Estates. Looks like they have one master stormwater permit and then a separate order of conditions for each of the lots. And they're looking for 3 years on all of them.
Yep, and I see Michael is here, if you guys have any questions for him. But otherwise, I don't think no work has started, so this is just a continuation of the permits.
Okay. Questions, comments? This is the first extension sought, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, our past practice has generally been to, upon request, I think we've always issued an extension after the initial 3 years runs out. I think we've always issued a 3-year extension upon request.
And these actually don't expire till February, but they got them in a little bit early just to make sure that they were done.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Hearing no questions or comments, is there a motion to grant the 3-year extension for the filings listed?
So moved,
And a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Zulik,
yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Awesome. Michael, we will get those to you on Tuesday. Not
So
Monday.
Melissa, you've been working pretty closely with the folks at 38 Presidential. I forget their names, but they're back at it now. And
Yep, and I actually have a Zoom meeting with them tomorrow at 11:30. So we're gonna finalize some of those plantings. So hopefully I can have a little bit more of a plan to put in front of you for the next meeting.
fantastic. So restrictive covenant for 84 Main, they're still finalizing the survey so that we have something to work from as we previously discussed. So
Correct.
we'll kick that can down the road to next meeting. The review of standard conditions for orders of conditions and stormwater management permits. I think we're going to do the same thing. We don't have a full panel here, and I know Melissa is feeling a little under the weather, so we're going to try to be kind to her tonight too and not drag things out too much. Let's see, comments for the Park Central 40B. We had previously put together a comment letter that we submitted to Mass Housing when it first reappeared 18 months ago, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. When are the comments due for this latest iteration?
So the ZBA is having their first hearing on October 11th.
Okay.
I think that's just to open the public hearing. So I put together at least some kind of very preliminary comments. It might be 6 pages long, but it's preliminary. One of the biggest issues that I saw was some misalignment in the wetland flag locations between the existing conditions plan and the boulders plan. They didn't seem to encompass all the revisions we made in the last NOI, which was a big flag for me. And then just kind of some smaller things in terms of ensuring that, there were some isolated wetlands that we determined to be bordering, ensuring that those are, encompassed. And then just kind of pointing out a little bit of the differences or the regulations for the ZBA comprehensive permit and the requirements with some of the compliance with our stormwater bylaw, and just kind of asking to beef up some of their erosion controls, kind of their O&M plan. I did pull out some of the comments that Fuss and O'Neill had from the last notice of intent, and kind of compared some of those comments and if they were still applicable to this. One thing that I noticed is a lot of the infiltration basins are closer than that 50-foot setback to some of those wetlands, which might be a big one. And then just trying to minimize some impacts to wetland resource areas within the 20-foot. There's a turnaround near the wastewater treatment plant that goes in between 2 wetlands that doesn't really seem necessary. So just asking the ZBA to require the applicant to look at some alternatives, things like construction phasing plan, asking them to have peer reviews, construction entrances, asking for like the locations of test pits. A lot of them in the test pit log stated that they were over 100 feet away from wetlands, but a lot of the infiltration basins are very obviously not 100 feet away from wetlands. So making sure that accurate test pit locations were done or should be done. And then just some things about the O&M plan. And then just kind of noting that it's a preliminary review. I didn't really get too into the weeds and reading like the hydrocadic calculations or anything, and kind of figuring out if they are still using the wetlands as or to meet the standards. But one thing I think I might add, if the commission is okay with this, is just kind of a general statement that during the last notice of intent, one kind of hiccup and one hindrance to the project and the reason of denial was for that reason, and for the applicant to ensure that that hasn't been utilized to meet the standards.
Yeah, I think one easy way to do that is just, a gentle reminder that stormwater management standards require that water discharged to a wetland meet all of the standards prior to discharge. Some of these, they were originally intended as detention basins, but were, for over 30 years unmaintained and are now wetlands. And now stormwater entering those has to meet the stormwater standards. I guess one thing I would say, so Kevin and Liz, I don't think you've gone the whole way through a 40B with us at this point. They're weird projects in that if the developer meets certain conditions, that 25% or more of the units built are qualify as affordable units. The project is underwritten by a Massachusetts Housing Authority, and the project is a so-called limited dividend project, which limits the developer to 10% profits of 10% of hard costs. So those 3 things, you can have a comprehensive permit or a 40B project, which allows the developer to ignore local bylaws and regulations. So that puts conservation in a funny position, because a big part of what we do is enforcing state law, the Wetlands Protection Act, and that does not get waived. So things like 100-foot buffer zone and you can't work within resource areas, all that kind of stuff, erosion sedimentation control. We still have our normal role in assuring that those laws and regulations are met, but our Southborough wetlands bylaw and our stormwater management bylaw, well, the ZBA hasn't waived those yet, but history tells us that they more than likely will waive all of those, and the developer will not have to comply with them. But we still have a very important role to play. This project has come before us twice previously, as Melissa kind of alluded to. Hopefully they can sort out this business of getting the wetlands delineated correctly before the plans are submitted to us, just in the interest of not wasting a bunch of time. But anyhow, that's sort of the 10,000 foot overview of the 40B process for a conservation commission. Anyhow, yeah, and with only 3 of us here, I don't think we're really positioned to go through the comment letter completely anyhow. I think we'd want to have our other 2 members present to do that. So we'll,
Yeah, if you guys are comfortable, I think at least for the October 11th meeting, just having a letter from the commissions, asking for additional time and that we're prepared to comment, then I can do that for just for their records.
that would be great. Does that sound good, Kevin and Liz?
Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic. And then, so Melissa, Personnel Board is updating job descriptions, or?
Yeah, it's pretty much what me, you, and Mark had gone over earlier in the year. It's just because I'm hired by the board. They want the board to vote on it. And there had been some changes in terms of we now have administrative staff, so we kind of encompass some of those. But it's very minor, just kind of adding the supervision of the assistant.
Yep. Okay. Do you need an approval of that this evening?
Yes, unfortunately, it's due tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I did work with Mark and Melissa, and as Melissa said, the substantive change is that Melissa is now directly overseeing the work of others and managing their efforts. So we added that to the job description. It was a pretty minor change to it. I suppose if folks wanted to, we could dig it out and read it real quickly if you feel it's necessary. I felt it was, like I said, fairly de minimis. If you'd like to, sorry,
There's a typo in it.
Oh no.
Instead of town forest, it says town forest. It's like, what the forest?
I'll change that.
It's like, I don't know what bullets aren't numbered, but talking about community gardens, Breakneck Hill in there.
Okay. Cool.
So
I'll change that.
I guess I'll make a motion to approve the job description as amended here this evening. Is there a second? Thank you.
Zulik,
Yes.
Farrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. And Melissa, you're up next.
All right, so there's not much going on open and active sites. I think we'll be seeing the COC for 90 Deerfoot soon. That's the new house on the corner of Route 9 and Deerfoot Road by Ken's. And in terms of the farm dump, we should be having the bid finally finalized next week to be placed out. So, we approved our order of conditions last time, just waiting for the check to be cut by accounting to get it recorded. Myself and TRC finalized the construction general permit. So we're in that 14-day waiting period with EPA. I had a brief update with DEP just to give them kind of our timeline because we're a little bit farther behind than we wanted. It's been difficult to get the bid documents together. We had some conflicting information from the state on procurement for a little bit and where this fell, if it was exempt or not. So they seem to be satisfied with the progress we're making, even with all the hurdles. So happy to report that. So that's kind of all I have for agent updates.
All right, thank you. Let's see. No other business has arisen that I can think of.
Just approving the order.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, thank you. So the order for 87 Southville. So the two conditions that I recall, one is for the construction phase invasives management that they will at the very least be discussing with you, Melissa, at a pre-construction meeting to inform you the destination of the materials and how they'll be handled as they're being torn out and stored on site and so forth.
Yep. And then
and the other is I suggested, I'm sorry, I should have asked for input from others. I threw the number of 24 months out there. 2 years. only because our permit's only good for 3 years, it seemed like we'd want to be sort of well within that. I don't know, that was my logic. But they seemed comfortable with it. So the condition would be that mitigation for the removal of trees will be in the form of invasives management on the site, sort of in conformance with our standard procedure for that, the 2-year monitoring period and so forth. In a future filing, if that filing isn't made within 24 months, then the applicant will prepare an invasives management plan and submit it to
Commission.
To the commission. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because, and I would say prior, and be contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of compliance.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the only other just kind of finding I had was about the dead debris within the river, and that they can't, do any alterations, but they can kind of push aside any dead material that they can remove by hand.
Okay. Is there any need to address the issue of the size of the actual pond? I understand that they're going to be working in an area without a hydraulic gradient, upstream of the dam. Not in an area of free flow. We had some discussion of that, but do we need to capture that in a condition?
I don't know, Joe, do you have any thoughts on that? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so, because as mentioned, they're not really proposing anything that would need to be considered under the limited project provisions.
Okay.
Oh, and the only other thing I'd pulled out, I think, from Joe's comments, unless I'm completely missing them, was the plastic and the netting, even if it's biodegradable. Was that for this one?
I remember that comment.
I remember.
I think it was for this one. I had it
Yep.
noted down, but so
I
even
think
if
it
it's
probably was this one. Yep.
I don't know what other one it would be for tonight. So
Yeah.
did we want to include no plastic within the biodegradable blankets or mats?
Yeah, I don't. There's no need to have it. You can get them made out of completely natural materials, all jute, and so there's really no need to have plastic,
Yeah,
biodegradable or otherwise.
Okay, awesome.
And just the chair, I mean, does the commission want to consider the potential for any impact on the bank where the barge is going to be loaded, and that was my suggestion as far as the silt curtain, just not so much for sediment sampling, but for any potential impact on the bank.
Hmm. I can sort of argue that from either direction.
I think they used the same process when they came before us last time. Did they? I think they were on a barge for the borings in the first round, and it didn't seem to have caused issues to the bank if we didn't want to have a silt curtain. I mean, it's always within our right as well if we see something that they'll have to put it in it. So even if it's not there, we can have something about maybe monitoring of the bank while the barge is installed or dropped in the water.
Yeah. One thing that occurs to me is maybe we could just condition that they notify you at least 72 hours in advance of the launching of the barge, so that you'd have the opportunity to observe.
Okay.
Does that seem to address?
I would love to watch that thing go in. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed. I was picturing a crane, dropping the whole thing in. It looks like they're going to use the crane for taking down trees. That's what my confusion was.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Right.
And then other than that, standard conditions.
Yep.
Yeah. Do we have to make a specific finding that it is a limited project?
I usually just list it in the findings of fact, so it's not
Okay.
necessarily a condition.
Okay. Great.
And I can definitely make sure that that's there.
All right. Anything else anyone can think of?
I don't think so.
Okay. So next step is just a motion to issue the order of conditions as amended here tonight.
So moved.
A second?
Second,
Zulik,
yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
All right, that's all I got, folks.
All right, so with that, we need one last motion. Somebody like to move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Zulik,
Yes.
Barrington,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Melissa, I don't think I'll be here at our next meeting.
Okay.
I have a work dinner. I'm not exactly sure when I'll be done. These meetings have been running long, so I could probably catch the second half.
All right. Yeah, and I didn't find a time that worked for a party. So maybe we wait until a little bit later in the year. You know, we don't really have a second meeting in December, so that might be an option. Or, you know, I'll send around another poll because I think it's something we still want to do and try and get Joe and Chris maybe there as well. So we'll find a better time.
Or my poll got lost in wedding planning for last weekend. So
Oh no, that's okay.
my daughter was getting married, so it was a little chaotic. But
Oh, congratulations.
thanks.
All right, guys. And just a heads up, I will be out next Thursday and Friday because I too will be in a wedding. So if you need me, call me on my cell, but I will be in maid of honor duty. So good luck.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Thanks.
Hope you feel better, Melissa.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Get
Have
the
a good
illness
night,
out of the way with now.
everyone. Yeah, that's my thought. See ya.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.